Okay. I won't do it again. I won't.
Dean, hello. How are you?
Even before you get to hello, and you had me at hello, we've used this line before, mes enfants, if you pay attention. Come and have a look at the previous episodes. They're much better than this one will be. I have a problem with the name of the show.
Of course you do. It wouldn't be Romaic Ruminations if you didn't have a problem.
No more Romaic Ruminations.
With the show. All right. What's
Romaic is so last season.
Right.
Iambic penetrations.
Iambic.
Iambic, you know, the ancient Greek meter. They had, not the meter as in or metron, how much you measure by.
Yeah.
But in poetry, you had to have a meter. There had to be a certain rhythm. You know, so iambic is ba-ba-bum, 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 ba-bum, 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 ba-ma-ti-se-to-tram, iambic, because we are repetitive. Penetrations, because that actual beat penetrates your soul and then you become like a sheep. That's the whole concept of rap music. It's true. Look it up. So iambic penetrations. We are a democracy of two. I leave it to you.
A democracy of two.
We are a democracy of two, yeah. But yes, that aside, hello, welcome. It's nice to see you all here. Yeah.
What do you think of our new setup? I've taken away the table. We've lost it.
I feel bereft.
Yeah.
A table is a prop behind which you can hide.
We're now all exposed.
Similar with the podium, or as we say in Trapezunda, the pondium, where, you know, it hides half of your figure so you don't feel so exposed. But look, no, I'm not going to say what I was about to say.
Okay.
It had to do with the fact that, you know, nakedness, the fact that I can possibly see parts of your anatomy that other people can't. No, I can't, Mizon. I just leave that to your imagination. Just sprinkling a little bit of sugar in there to make the medicine go down. Okay. It's a good setup. I love it.
I'm glad.
It's going to be great.
It's going to be great.
Yeah.
Now, do you mind if I do something? Let me just stick that right near your face.
That doesn't sound too good.
It doesn't. But I want to make sure that we capture your voice in all its eloquence and beauty.
Okay. I have a projectile within striking distance of my orifice.
You know what, Dean?
Or as they say in Italian, orifice, which they do.
There's been it's been a while since we've actually had an episode.
I think
right?
this is the first one for this year, is it not?
I think so.
And we're already at the end of February.
Gee,
this speaks volumes for our inspiration, our ambition, and the fact that our rival podcasts have taken over.
The hell have they?
By the way, what do you think about hanging a mati from the window? Because you know there's that expression, kaliterana suvito mati parato onoma. And
is that where it goes?
Watch more TikTok clips like this on our Talk Mati podcast. Available now at all inane Facebook pages. Yeah.
Oh,
well, it wouldn't be the same if we trashed. We wouldn't be Greeks if we didn't trash the opposition.
Well, absolutely.
Not that anyone could be opposed to us.
No.
But one of the other great things about being Greek is that you create enemies where there are none. the imagined enemies. You know, Benedict Anderson talked about imagined communities. You imagine yourself as part of something great, even you haven't met the people that you identify with. We talk about imagined enemies, the essence of being a Greek. And I know that you're talking about me behind my back.
Always.
To the camera.
Always.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah. Speaking of cameras and Greek concepts and so forth, I think we recently discussed a pretty interesting topic on the word philotimia and the other one. Philoxenia.
Philotimithikame to be drawing close to the Antipodes festival.
Right.
Which is interesting because, this episode will probably be uploaded 5 months after the Antipodes festival because that's the usual time it takes
before then
to edit this. But this weekend we've got the Antipodes festival.
That's right, we do.
Over 150,000 people are expected to walk up,
here in Melbourne,
walk down, buy a souvlaki or die trying. Huge amounts of acts, a lot of things going on. It's going to be great. But I have a problem with the word Antipodes. Just like I've got a problem with the word Romaic Ruminations. And I think that the name of the festival needs to be changed.
Really?
I do.
Everyone knows it's the Antipodes. Aren't we living in the Antipodes?
No, we're not.
Oh, come on.
And this is where we all make a big, grave mistake because we are anistoriti. unhistorical.
Ah, yes.
We don't know our history.
Clearly not.
So
why don't you educate us, Dean? What is it we
why
don't
the hell
know?
would I do that? What would I know? But the Antipodes is that whole idea, or Antipodas, the opposite.
Right.
The other leg, if you like. And I mean that in the nicest possible way. So there's this belief that there's Europe,
Yes.
and then there's the opposite of Europe, the antipode of Europe. And it was an expression that the British colonialists used. So in this post-colonial word, you think you're being multicultural, mes enfants, by using the word Antipodes. What you are doing is being Orientalist, reactionary, and post-colonial.
Oh, God.
And none of these things are apparently good because none of us can spell them. But it comes from a very ancient, very venerable Greek geographer called Kratis of Malos, who worked in Pergamos in Asia Minor.
This is the word Antipodes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he was one of the first people to conceive of the world as a globe, because, you know, Copernicus didn't get there on his own.
No.
We were talking about the Earth being round a long time before then. Yeah. Aristarchos of Samos, who actually measured the Earth's circumference pretty accurately. And Kratis of Milos, who developed the globe and then says, well, here's Europe, here's Asia, here's Africa. We know about that. There's got to be something somewhere else in order to balance everything.
Yeah.
So he drew a hypothetical continent around about where America is,
Right.
north and south,
Yep.
and called that Antipodes.
Right. Okay then.
And then he conceived of a big landmass underneath Asia, round about where Australia and Antarctica is. He left out New Zealand because the details of New Zealand are completely inconsequential. Yeah. And he said, this is where the Andiiki live,
The
opposite
Antiiki.
our house.
Ah,
So it should be the Andiikos festival,
right.
because the Antipodes festival, if we were going to be geographically correct, should be taking place in Brazil.
In Brazil.
Yeah, in Rio de Janeiro, with all of the dancing and all of that, and not solhades the way we do. So yes, we are the Andiiki, and that sounds a bit not elegant.
Yeah, it's very it's hard rolling off the tongue.
Our archdiocese often talks about Australia being the fifth continent. So how about the Fifth Continent Festival, or the Incontinent Festival, if you've been on the piss? I'm not a fascist. I think everyone should be free to name things the way they want. Yeah?
Right. Yeah. Well, you can actually propose it to the Greek community.
Semantic liberty is what we're all about on this show, which is why we keep on changing the name of the show. So why not change Antipodes to reflect a geographical reality that no longer exists?
I don't think it's going to fly with the Greek community. I just don't think it's going to fly.
We are really a community that is not airborne, aren't we? I feel this. I feel this all the time. You know, there is no air traffic control when it comes to the Greek community.
None at all.
So, but that's what happened. Kratis of Milos talked about there must be a continent down in the south, and they are the Andiiki.
The Andiiki.
Not the Antipodeans. The Antipodeans are in America, and of course everyone else is where Pauline Hanson feels they should be.
But what's that got to do with Philoxenia? The meaning of that word.
Philotimo, because we were talking about Philotimo.
We were, yes.
I love the word Philotimo.
Right.
You know that expression? I don't know if you ever heard it from your uncles or aged people. I know you'd see all the old Yeri. That's old people to you folks out at home. It's in the gang. Όταν βγήκε το sorry, χάθηκε το Philotimo.
No.
And then the other one would be Αυτή η Αυστραλή, usually prefaced by the word κόλο. Κόλο Αυστραλή. Αυτή η κόλο Αυστραλή δεν έχουνε Philotimo ρε mate.
This I've heard. This one
Now,
I've heard,
it depends because if you're from the south, you say mate. If you're from the north, you say Mike. Δεν έχουνε Philotimo ρε Mike. And when you go to the pub,
Yeah.
I had never been to a pub in Australia, born and bred here, never gone into a pub until I went to England and walked into a pub and didn't know what to do. I was not au fait with the pub
born
etiquette.
and raised here, you've never been to a pub.
No, because η κόλλο Αυστραλή δεν έχουν Philotimo.
For the love of Christ.
And the whole idea was the old people would say you walk into a pub and you order a schooner or whatever the hell it is. I don't know because I don't go to pubs. I don't go anywhere. No one allows me. And goes and you shout the Australo, you offer to pay for their beer.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to their turn, they say, let's split the bill. Each person pays for himself because δεν έχουνε Philotimo.
Okay.
And then you go to the next point, which is Aramaic. Philotimo is a word that only exists in the Greek language.
That's right.
It's Greek.
Mm.
No one else can translate Philotimo.
No.
And the whole idea of that is, okay, there are words which are specific to cultures which can't be translated
True.
accurately in any other language.
Mm.
Huzun is one in Turkish, which is this sense that people in Constantinople have when they live there, this weight, this like almost melancholy.
Right.
Huzun. You feel it there. You can't translate that into any other language properly, so what? But anyway, Philotimo is one of those words because the implication is only we have Philotimo.
Yes.
No one else can understand what it is because somehow genetically it's in our DNA.
Yeah.
Somewhere in our mitochondria, there's a little bit of Philotimo screaming for liberty, but it's trapped within us. We can't help it. What do you think Philotimo is? How would you describe it? You're a Greek.
I don't know. Hospitality. Being nice to your fellow man.
Philotimo is like the love of honor. You do things because it's almost like an altruism. Echo Philotimo, I'll offer myself to you. I'll do things for you.
Right.
I'll do things for you because my sense of honor demands that I do this. You know, I wouldn't be a decent person if I didn't. Philotimo is, if you don't have money, I'll give you some to help you along your way. If you've lost something, I'll give you something to help you. It's about assistance, help, and it reflects honor upon you. Yeah.
Yes.
And
makes sense.
A person who breaks that moral or social code and does not give of himself, is not generous, is not altruistic, then έχει Philotimo.
Yeah.
You know, Stratos Dionysios, στην φτωχή σου την καρδιά αφιλότιμη. There's a whole song about people that don't have philotimia. No, it's a misogynistic song. It's a woman who has no philotimo because that's the way we roll in the old days. Stratos dead, so he can't defend himself. But it was not always that way.
No.
And it may surprise you to learn that it's a very old term because Greek, again, you may be surprised to know, mes enfants, is a very old language. Not as old as the Aboriginal languages, we're told, but pretty old. So, for example, you find him in Herodotus, this word philotimo.
Yeah, okay. So Herodotus mentions the word.
And he talks about it being a desire for honor, ambition, competitive, striving. So he says, philotemian epievondo. They were striving out of love of honor. There it's got a different connotation. I want to be seen as the one who has honor. I win. Philotimo.
Right.
I love honor. I want to be honored. I do things so I can be honored. I win the race. I am the richest. I am the best. You know, kind of like Greek builders in the 90s at Yortes, talking about how many properties they own, how many Mercedes. Lebanese property developers these days. I'm not being racist, you know. So striving out of love of honor, wanting distinction. It's public. It's competitive. It's status-oriented. Yeah? Philotimo. And then you see it with Thucydides, you know, writing about the Peloponnesian War. Was exiled to Sparta and then had nothing to do, so he wrote down the memoirs. Never exile people to Sparta. First of all, it's a cultural wasteland. I don't know if you've ever been there. Lovely countryside, but the actual city itself, And what happens when you're there? You've got absolutely nothing to do. If you can't go on a day trip to Monemvasia or somewhere like that, you'll write the history of your people, which is what he did. Philotimumeni tis polios axiine, he writes, striving out of love of honor to be worthy for the city. So it's got this civic connotation, you know, to be thought well of by your peers in your city. Aristotle, or as they say in his native tongue, Aristotle, because as we know, Aristoteles was a famous Skopjean educator who talked about Skopjean nationalism to Alexander the Great. Talks about ο δε φιλότιμος υπερβάλλει περί την τιμήν. He who wants honor, strives for honor, goes to excess concerning honor. This is the person who wants to be famous, wants other people to honor him, to admire him, to say, geez, you're good. He's the guy that would do the equivalent of put a post on Facebook about how many kilos he's lost and how he's just gone to the gym and it's leg day. And everyone's like, you look great, you look fantastic. He's the guy. So it begins to have a negative connotation. It's all about asking for too much attention, asking for too much honor. And Aristotle is skeptical of all this. Doesn't like it very much.
So you're saying the philotimia had that in the ancient era a more negative connotation than it does
I'm saying
today?
it had a more unstable and changing connotation.
Right.
And a different connotation. It wasn't just about a moral code. It was about being thought of well of. It was about being admired. And then it becomes ethically unstable when you take it to extreme, the way Aristotle describes, where you're just doing things for attention so people can think well of you. Yeah. And Philotimo, you may be interested to know, is also mentioned in the New Testament.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That part of the Bible where Romans chapter 15, no, we're not televangelists. Open up your Bibles to Romans chapter 15, praise the Lord. Ούτως δε φιλοτιμούμεν ευαγγελίζεσθε. And thus I make it my ambition to preach the gospel. So philotimo becomes aspiration.
Right.
I aspire. I want. Yeah. I διό και φιλοτιμούμεθα ευάρεστη αυτό είναι. So we make it our aim to be pleasing to him. So that's got a different connotation again. And then in the Thessalonians, this is St. Paul, because St. Paul wrote in Greek, και φιλοτιμήστε ησυχάζειν, and to aspire to live quietly, which is what we all should do if we were true philosophers and not Greeks. Yeah. So it changes, and that's the turning point. It's no longer about public honor. It's no longer about drive. It's no longer about attention. It's about having an aim in life, and the aim being to do what's right, what's pleasing, that kind of thing.
So in a span of, let's say, 400 odd years, we've seen a change.
400, yeah. Well,
at the time of Aristotle, it's about 350 odd years.
About that.
Yeah.
So words change in meaning, and this word that cannot be described in any other language, cannot be defined. Philotimo, that code of honor that defines the true Greek, it's gone through stages in development.
Right.
Now that whole idea that bringing honor to yourself is something that will fame, attention. You have the paparazzi, you have Instagram. We haven't migrated to Instagram. Have we migrated to Instagram?
I've posted a few.
You have posted
clips
a few
up
things
on Instagram, yeah.
I don't have Instagram. I can't even spell it. I've got a friend who's from Syria, and he can't. They've got their own pronunciation. They can't pronounce consonants together. They always have to put in a vowel. So it's insatageram, giram. And I just love that. I want to get it just for that. But yeah, philotimo, revsti erminia, changes over time. So who knows what philotimo? There's philotimo, the pita, that's philosophy. And that's like to philo tis pitas. But you could have philotimo, which is the philo, and then timi is the value.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So philo of the pita, value,
The
cut
love
price,
or value.
cut price pita. I think that's a great thing. So yeah, you have philotimo.
Doesn't seem like it's changed much since St. Paul's time, though.
No,
in the meaning
I think it has, because aspiration is different from philotimo. And Paul used it always as a verb. Philotimume. Philotimithikes na kanis αυτό is always said sarcastically. Oh, you've had the philotimo to do this.
Right.
I did the decent thing. But Paul just talks about it in terms of doing the right thing. We want honor, we want virtue, therefore we're doing this. Yeah. Philoxenia.
Yes.
I love the word philoxenia. Οι Έλληνες είναι φιλόξενοι. Δεν υπάρχει τίποτα σαν τη φιλοξενία των Ελλήνων. You go to Greece. Ήρθες, πότε φεύγεις, τι μας έφερες?
Now that hasn't changed
Philoxenia.
much.
No. It hasn't, but there was never this idea of philoxenia. Xenia was the word.
Right.
You see in Greece hotels called xenia.
Yeah.
And xenia is a word you find ever since Homer. So very venerable, very ancient. And it's in the Odyssey. It talks about Zeus garestin xenion epitimitor και iketon. Zeus is the protector, and the avenger of strangers and suppliants. So the whole idea is you need to be nice to strangers. Now, if you have to have a religious and moral code which teaches you to be nice to strangers, my argument, as opposed to those people who say that Greeks are naturally philoxeni, is that if you have to impose it, it means that you're naturally not. And this has to be a virtue which is taught. So, philoxenia to xenophobia is only a couple of letters away. But for Greeks, hospitality was always sacred.
Right.
Zeus was called Zeus Xenios, Zeus of strangers.
Right.
Look after your strangers.
Mm.
Yeah. And there was an institutionalized guest friendship. You were welcomed into someone's house. You have to act a certain way. You have to honor them. You know, there's a moral code. You can't steal their wives the way that Paris did. Yeah, that's no. And half of the reason why we don't sympathize with Paris, mes enfants, is because he broke the guest friendship.
Right.
He's welcomed. He's been looked after. You don't take liberties with other people's wives.
No.
Although, you know, they're not other people's wives. They speak for themselves. And, you know, she had free choice. Although in the text and in the myths around it, Helen followed him through no agency of her own. She was possessed. The gods made her do it and all that. So do we have free choice? Absolutely not. As private think parts we are to the gods. They play with us for their sport, as the great Blackadder once said. So there's that. Xenophon in the Kyropedia, you know Xenophon. He was that guy that took all the Greeks up to where the Pontians are, and then they said, Falata, and then they went and had a big barbecue on the Rye foreshore there after the Fota.
After they got stung by the bees.
Epidiknio Philoxenian Megalian. Philoxenian, first time we find this word, he displayed great hospitality. Yeah? So that's where we get it. It's hospitality, Philoxenia.
Right.
But I mean, it translates philo, love of, xenia, love of strangers.
Love of strangers, correct.
We love strangers. And then there was that in tragedy, you know, Aeschylus, Paris, as we said, violates guest friendship by taking Helen away, all that stuff. It's a moral law. Then we get to the New Testament. Philoxenia is in the New Testament. It's in the Bible.
Right.
Dudes. It's amazing, huh? We always go on about the ancient world, how great it is, but this philoxenias mine pilanthanes there, this is in Hebrews. Τους Εβραίους. Διαταύτης γαρ έλαθον, τίνες ξενήσαντες αγγέλους. Do not neglect hospitality, for some have entertained angels unawares, the famous phrase.
Right, okay.
Yeah, philoxenia and hospitality. So it's no longer aristocratic. Philoxenia in the old days in ancient Greece was you go to the big houses, the big grandees, you're welcome, you're given guest gifts. That's a very important part of it. You stay the customary how many days? Traditionally it was 3 days. You would invite a xeno to stay with you for 3 days and then you'd have to go. You couldn't abuse the guest friendship by staying longer.
Right.
Yeah, so you knew you had 3 days to go and find another best friend if you wanted to stay for a long time. And so in the Bible, open to all, it becomes a spiritual discipline. You got to look after people. Now, so you go from philoxenia, welcoming people, to what we have in Greece today, or where we're afraid of the xeni, or I know many years ago, a lady that I knew was really, really upset because her son was marrying a xeni. Oh my God, it's the end of the world. And I said, Thea, you know, what are you worried about? You must have philoxenos laos. We love strangers.
Yeah.
And she tried to be physically violent. Yeah. Because
we've been very scared.
Are we philoxeni? I don't know. Do you think we're a philoxenos laos people?
Do you think do I think that we are?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
Why?
Because I believe the Greeks are very welcoming. I think they've welcomed many, many different races and people to their country.
You think so?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. I look at the ancients who were very, very, very reticent about letting people in. So if you weren't from Athens, for example, you're a metikos. You could live there, but you were not one of them.
Correct.
And I say, not exactly pluralism. No one did this thing where they said, you know what, we don't care whether you speak Greek or Chinese or Roman or whatever. You're all citizens and you're all equal.
No.
The Romans were the first who did this.
Roman
citizenship
wasn't offered to everybody automatically.
It was by Caracalla. The Emperor Caracalla decided, you know what, we're going to open it up to everybody. And he did.
Not everyone became a citizen.
Yes. He opened it up to everyone.
When was this?
Look it up on Wikipedia. Well, Caracalla was an older emperor. It was after the glory days of everything. But
Okay.
eventually that's what happened.
Right.
That was the first time ever that happened, where people said, you know what, you're all the same. I don't care what you speak, what religion you are. Before then, you're right, certain people had the privileges,
Right.
but you didn't have to be a Roman to become a Roman citizen. St. Paul of Tarsus, we just quoted from his epistles about Philoxenia and Philotimo.
Yeah, yeah.
He was a Roman citizen.
Yes.
I was not a Roman citizen in that time. Neither were you.
No.
You look at that. Then you look at things like the idea of proxenos. Does that mean pro-xenos? What does it mean? Or proxenos?
Before?
Today, in the modern usage, proxenos is a person who represents a country like Greece, comes here and then spends the next 3 years of their theta being taken, wined and dined and eating free food at Greek Brotherhood functions. No, they do a lot more than that. They also make sure that there's enough bureaucracy to keep them employed for the next 3,000 years. You call and they say, come back after 5 years when you've forgotten what you have to do. All your relatives in Greece are dead. But apart from that, the ancient function of the proxeno was to be pro-xenos, to be a friend to the stranger.
Right.
So if you enter into a city and you're not from that city, say Geelong, for example, or Bendigo, or Ballarat, or Newcastle, or I don't know, what's another city of Australia? I don't know my Australian cities. Auckland and Wellington, that's New Zealand, they're a bit icy. And no one knows you.
Yeah.
Someone has to vouch for you.
Right.
So the job of the proxeno was to be almost like a guarantor for this stranger.
Right.
Look, you don't know Pete. I could tell you that he's the most disreputable person of intense malignity, but I won't. I'll vouch for him. So while he's in the city, I'm his guarantor. I'll look after him. Trust me, he's good.
Right.
That was the job of the proxenos. So he was like your inductee into that society.
Okay.
Today, the proxenos has got a completely different.
True.
He is the representative of a foreign, or she, representative of a foreign country.
Correct.
In another country.
Yeah.
It's amazing how these terms change. But that's got nothing to do with what we were talking about, which is, are Greeks Philoxenia?
Yes.
What I think?
Yes. What do you think then?
Yes.
Yes.
You can travel the length and breadth of Greece, and if you're Xenos and something happens, there will be always someone to help you.
Yes.
Always someone to find out what's going on. Always someone to assist you, even though they're not going to make a profit out of it.
Correct.
Yeah.
I believe that.
Absolutely. And I've seen that. I've experienced that.
Yes.
Εκεί που το πράγμα χαλάει,
Yeah.
because there's confusion, is when you decide that you want to stay for longer.
Yes.
And then there becomes a blurred
Yeah.
distinction. Are you a xenos, or are you a metikos, or are you going to be treated like one of us? Εκεί χαλάει, because it's a very small society, limited resources, a lot of competition.
Yes.
And then that's when, because the xenos piyeni and thinks that, you know what, I'm going to be treated like that perennially.
Yeah.
After the veneer, the sheen, if you like, of xenia fades, then a lot of xeni, whether of Greek origin or not, get a little bit disappointed. That's my argument. But no, I've had amazing experiences of kindness and assistance in Greece.
Yeah. I just think that philoxenia does not necessarily mean that you automatically become one of us. It just means that you're always going to be a xenos, and we will treat you for a limited amount of time with the respect and dignity that we need to treat you.
As long as you bugger off afterwards and don't hang around.
Well, it is.
Well, that's why you don't outstay your welcome.
Absolutely. Yes.
And you entertain your strangers unawares.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
But I do think that we end up, Greece though, ends up disappointing me sometimes when it treats certain people as a xeno when those people are actually Greek or should be treated as Greek. And it's a great segue into the next topic I wanted to discuss with you.
Okay, we are segueing.
It's to do with...
I love a segue.
Vasili Yalali.
Vasilis Yalali.
Yeah.
That's an interesting name. I know Vasilis. Yalali doesn't sound like Greek.
It doesn't sound Greek.
Pete?
Born and raised in Turkey.
Lovely.
And he was actually a staunch Turkish nationalist until he...
As you would be. I know many staunch Turkish nationalism.
Until he
In
found...
varying degrees of staunchness, I may add. For staunchness is not a monolithic concept. We'll talk about staunchness sometime.
One day. Until he found out he had Greek roots, Pontic Greek roots. And once he found that out and realized that, that his history, his own family history, was not what he thought it was.
Okay.
He started advocating for the rights of, the Greek minority there. Right.
What Greek minority there?
Well,
Which
there
one?
still exists a Greek minority in Turkey. Well, I would say what they call Romei.
Yeah.
Right.
So these are people who speak Pondian, who are Muslim, who remain behind after the catastrophe and the genocide because they were Muslims.
Yeah. So he's advocating for those. He was imprisoned, I believe, for about 5 years. Was released and has gone to Greece and now is seeking asylum, to which...
he's been there for a while, hasn't he?
He has been there for a while.
He converted to Christianity.
He did.
So, which is an interesting thing. There's two things that immediately raise questions in my mind. One is a question of identity.
Yes.
I don't know about you. Let's say tomorrow you found out that you've been living a lie.
Yeah.
And your grandparents are actually Hungarian.
Yeah.
What would that change for you?
I don't know.
I don't think it would change anything for me.
I just don't know.
If I found out my ancestors were Transylvanian, well, they probably were because everyone calls me Vrikolaka at home.
Yeah.
Or Turkish or Arab or Sudanese. That would be interesting.
Yeah.
I have we've got to talk about this, the Christian kingdoms of the Sudan one day in the Middle Ages, which were not only Christian, but used Greek as an official language.
Okay.
Anotelia, we'll come back to that, really interesting. But I don't think it would change anything for me because I think that your primary identity is the culture that you've been brought up in.
Well, for him, apparently it changed.
For him, it changed.
Right.
I find that amazing to the point where when I read comments in Greece, people are skeptical about it. So people say, okay, did he really have this epiphany or is he trying to escape persecution? Is he really a sincere Christian or is he just trying to avoid doing everything that he can to avoid being extradited to Turkey? And it's interesting because you live in a country, you're a Greek, you don't have to be a practicing Christian. You don't have to believe in Christianity.
No.
You don't have to be patriotic.
No.
And it's okay because you're part of the group. But when somebody else, a xeno, asserts the right to be part of the group based on ancestry, because his argument is, well, you know what, you got to let me in because I'm not really a xeno. I'm really one of you. Yeah. Albeit through extenuating circumstances.
Right.
All of a sudden there's skepticism, cynicism, questions. You know what I mean? But it's interesting. I'm reminded of the story of the mollahs of Off being where the Orphites come from, a city in Pondos or a village.
Right.
Off from Orphi, snakes. Apparently there are a lot of snakes. So in the 1850s or thereabouts, the great powers said to the Sultan, you got to be a bit more lax with your subjects. A lot of them have been converted forcibly to Islam. And it's not right. The people that were converted forcibly, you should let them go back to what they were. And because there was a lot of pressure at the time, the Sultan said, you know what, recent converts, we'll give them a period if they want to pick what they want to do. They want to stay with Islam or they want to go back to Christianity, especially in Pondos. And the mullahs of Off, mullahs being Islamic clerics, this Greek Pondian-speaking town in Pondos, went to the local authorities and said, look, don't send anyone here to ask our people whether they want to convert back. Yeah. Because they'll convert in droves back to Christianity and we're all going to lose our jobs. Yes. And they didn't send them to Off. And now the Orphites, I don't think there's many of them who speak Greek still, but the Orphites are the most radical and fanatic that you can find, which is really, really interesting. Yes. The fervor of conversion to belong. Yes. Now, we're talking about things that happened over 150 years ago. Yes. The extent to which, and that's the other question. I'm a Rum-speaking person of Islamic faith living in Trabzon, Trapezunda, or Rize, or wherever. Yeah. What do I feel? I mean, I know I'm not speaking a language which is Turkish. Yes. Do I feel Greek? What do I feel? Or do I feel, and this is what I think it is, just a native of this place?
I think that most people feel that, Dean. I think that most of them, from what I've gathered from the interviews that I've watched, most of them aren't like Vasili. Most of them do not have this fervor to actually advocate for identity. They're quite happy being Turkish, know that they've got this lineage.
I think they're like a subculture under the Turkish Republic.
Correct.
That's how they see themselves.
Yeah, that's right. But we should be, and most of them are trying to find, there's a common link, and we should be looking at, being together and working with each other, even though we've got these two divergent branches now of call it Greek culture, call it Greek identity.
Well, it's not. It's Rum identity.
Yeah. So, but
Rum on a broom, as the children's book goes.
But my issue, going back to
because you have an issue.
I do have an issue.
Yeah.
I have an issue with the Greek government rejecting.
You are not going to get invited to the National Day function, or the parelasi, or the cocktail party, which is by invitation only. Yeah. Closed doors.
Yeah. You can keep it.
Security guards at the gate
don't want the invite
with a list of undesirables, and your name is going to be there.
Please,
because you just criticised the Greek government.
On the list, put it there.
I can't endorse this.
Oh man,
what's the problem with the Greek government?
They rejected his asylum application. A man who I have personally been following for at least a decade. Okay. So I know that this isn't just a man who's come out of nowhere the last couple of years, asking for it. We've been following him from his time in Turkey before he was.
How long has he been living in Greece?
I don't know. It's been years.
It's been a long time. I think it's been about 6-7 years.
Around there,
more.
Yeah. Around
so
there.
The Greek government putting the ass in asylum.
And that asylum application was rejected on the same day as when Mitsotakis was meeting with Erdogan for their peace summit.
Mitsotakis being our august leader.
Prime Minister of Greece.
Prime Minister of Greece. And of the diaspora, some people say.
Oh, yeah. Some people do. Anyway. So, I mean, and I've got people telling me, Peter, it's politics. I know it's politics. I know it's politics. It does not make it right.
What's politics?
The fact that I believe it was the foreign minister rejected his asylum application on the day that Mitsotakis met up with Erdogan because they didn't want to, alienate or piss off the Turkish government.
Do you think it's worth pissing off the Turkish government?
Yes, I do.
Why?
Because I believe that a country like Greece, like any other country, should have a moral stance on certain issues in defending the Greek people.
So is the price of pissing off the Turkish government on this issue too high? When we piss off the Greek with the Turkish government on many issues, like the fact that we exist, that pisses off the Turkish government. The fact that we control the islands off the Asia Minor littoral, and there is, don't tell anyone, but there are soldiers there. It's supposed to be demilitarized. Shh, it's a secret between us and them. Will piss them off because there's a Muslim community in Thrace which isn't given, according to them, enough privileges. Or we piss them off because we want to exploit some oil with Cyprus and Israel. Is Yalali one pissed off too far?
No.
Why?
Because he's a Greek. They're seeking asylum in his...
But the Greek government always treats Greek people badly. That's how you know that he's a Greek. That's how you know that he's part of the fold.
I know that Greece is in a very precarious position against a very powerful nation. But you have to take a stance. I mean, there's no point in actually being a country without taking a stance. Why didn't Metaxa just allow Italy to run over?
Because the British told him not to.
Oh, right. So that's how Greece defines its foreign policy. Not based on what's in the interest of their citizens, but what is in the interest of the powers that be.
Can you stop the camera because we've got to have a talk? Pete, the foreign interference in Greece and the fact that I've got a theory that Greece was a construct set up to fail by the foreign powers is a separate topic for another day, but it's
actually a very good topic. I'm interested in that one.
Yeah, okay. I mean, you look at when Greece was first formed and they had the parliament, what were the parties? The French party.
True.
The English party.
The Russian.
The Russian party, of which Kolokotronis was a prominent member, yeah? So that in itself tells you what we're looking at. Now, your Greece, precarious position, because it is precarious.
I know.
Let's not delude ourselves,
No,
yeah?
definitely not.
security is a massive issue. So many problems, and yes, a system that doesn't work and which is often corrupt and dysfunctional. It's like playing chess where every second move is checkmate. You have a limited amount of choices and they're all bad. So from a political point of view, would you be tempted to sacrifice a non-citizen even though you're doing something morally wrong in order to get a short-term advantage? You say no, and I say, fair enough, I respect your judgment on this. And then I point you gently into the direction of Abdullah Öcalan, the leader of the Kurds, who the Greeks assisted to hand over to Turkey.
Yes.
Yeah? And he was in Kenya, or somewhere like that from memory. I remember that. These things happen. And my argument is politics is a dirty game. Politics and diplomacy often require you to make choices which are not morally the best. But that is the nature of the beast. And that's a value judgment. And time will tell whether that's good or bad. But he hasn't been released yet. My argument is completely different to yours.
Go on, let's hear it.
And unlike you, I'm not invested emotionally in Vasili Yalali. I'm not.
Yeah.
Only because I'm just not.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
No other reason. I don't feel any, antipathy towards the guy. I don't feel antipathy towards the Greek government on this point, which is very strange because I want to go to the cocktail party this year. If you're watching people at Philoxenia, please, I'd love to go there. I'll wear a fustanella, I'll do anything you want. But what I feel is that possibly this decision not to grant him asylum is actually illegal under international and
so
European
that's an
law.
interesting point.
So I'm putting my lawyer hat on here.
Okay.
And I'm saying, diplomacy, politics, we know you make it up as you go along within the parameters of the possible. Politics is the art of the possible. Here I am playing with my microphone. That's not a euphemism for anything. Or maybe it is. The problem that I have is I think it's illegal.
Why?
Because it is. There's a whole regime of international law, which has been enshrined in European law.
Right.
It's the Refugee Convention, which states how you need to grant asylum to people who are political refugees, people who are being persecuted because of their beliefs.
Yes.
And when it is appropriate to reject their application or not. And we don't have enough information, which is why I'm reserving judgment. I'm not so vocal as you and passionate about it, although I admire your passion. I've told you this many times when we've been alone, no one's been listening, how much I admire your passion. But we don't know enough about the decision-making process, but I feel that intrinsically something's gone wrong because I feel the decision is probably political.
Yes.
And the proper format has not been adhered to. So you have this refugee convention,
Yes.
And it's all about refugees because that's what it is. And it defines a refugee as a person with a well-founded fear of persecution. For various reasons. They don't have to be specific, but it includes political opinions. Now, we know that this guy has been persecuted in his home country. We know he's gone to jail. We know that things that he's raised, like, hey, guys, there was a genocide of Christians that took place here. These are things which could cause him severe penalties, incarceration, possibly torture. We know this. We know how it operates. And when you have that, there's a certain number of steps that you need to look at before you make the decision, do I grant asylum or not? So one of them is, well, do I have opinions that are not respected, liked, will cause me penalties just because I have them in the country that I don't want to go back to? In this case, tick, So the UNHCR handbook says that protection extends to persecution of political opinions. That's enshrined in EU law.
Right.
So, yes, you need to protect someone who's being persecuted for political opinions and grant them asylum. EU law, there's a directive, Article 10, brackets 1, brackets C, Directive 2011, it's not that old, /95 EU says, yep, this principle of international law, we're enshrining it in EU law.
Right.
Greece is a member of the EU, apparently. We're still talking about us and Evropi, but legally we're Greece, not we, because we live here.
Correct,
we often forget this. It's part of the European Union. that is part of the legal regime.
Right.
Yeah.
So your objective opinion, the unemotive one, is that foreigners had no right to reject asylum.
Haven't gotten there yet.
Okay, fair enough.
There's a case, FG versus Sweden. Yeah,
Right.
European Court of Human Rights.
Yep.
Says you need to look at a rigorous, I love that word, rigorous. It's like rigorous, but rigorous, an individualized assessment of foreseeable risk. So not only do I hold the political opinion, which is going to get me into trouble, but is there a risk that I'm going to cop a lot of harm if I'm extradited back to where I came from? You got to look at the applicant's political profile. You got to look at current country conditions. You got to look at generalized references to stability. They're not insufficient. So if they're saying, oh, you know, the country's all right, no, it's generally okay, not good enough. But you got to look at all these criteria.
Right.
Yeah. You got to look at prosecution versus persecution. So legitimate prosecution doesn't equal persecution. The question is, are you going to be prosecuted by law or are you actually going to be persecuted? What's the difference? They say within the legislation and within the European cases that Greece is bound by, I stress again, that prosecution becomes persecution where it's simply because of a political opinion, it's selective, the punishment is disproportionate. So there are countries where, for example, there's a law of lèse majesté where you can't criticise the royal family.
Yes.
That's in Thailand.
Yes.
So all the jokes that American, English comedians are making about the man formerly known as Prince Andrew at the moment would land them in jail if they made those in Thailand about the royal family.
Yes.
For us, it's free speech democracy taking the piss, as it were.
Yes.
That is a crime.
Yes.
So that's the kind of thing that we're looking at here.
Yeah.
Is the penalty for having an opinion disproportionate to the punishment? You look at that, and then you got to do research about the country that you're going to be extradited to. What's the prevailing opinion? What kind of laws are they? How are prisoners treated? What is the legal regime? Now, we happen to know in this situation that in terms of free speech, in terms of political opinions, Turkey under this regime is possibly not as open as it would or should be under the UNHCR standards. And I mean, obviously, that's their business, how they run their country. But according to those standards of which Greece is supposed to adhere to, not compatible. So you've got to look at that. And then the asylum threshold is talking about whether these are real risk or reasonable likelihood that he's going to be persecuted and be subject to harm. It's not, is it possible, is it 100% certain, but there's a real risk. That's the test. So there's that assessment. Where past persecution has been established, and that has been in this situation because he's had a run-in with the law while in Turkey for speaking off about the things that he feels passionately about, the international practice shifts the burden to the state to show fundamental change. No, it's not like that. If we bring him back, we'll just wrap him on the knuckles, say you're a bad boy, and send him to Van or Batman or somewhere really boring in Turkey. The Refugee Convention prohibits the return to a risk of persecution, again enshrined in EU law, prohibits removal to a country where there's a risk of torture, degrading treatment, there's an Italian case which confirms this, that is the law. So
seems to be enough there.
What I'm saying is that did they consider these things when they rejected his application?
You asking rhetorically?
No. I am asking the question. Because if they did, then he's got a right to published reasons. So, okay, Mr. Yalali, thank you for being with us today. We don't accept your, application for asylum because we don't believe, A, you're a genuine refugee, or we don't believe that you are going to be punished because of your political opinions. And if you are going to be punished for your political opinions, we don't believe that that punishment is going to be disproportionate, onerous, or anything like that. So if he's going to go to Turkey and cop a fine, that's not enough. But I haven't seen any published list. no one has seen a published list of reasons, let alone Yalali himself. Okay, so that's where I think possibly, in absence of that list, this decision has been made ad hoc, possibly for the reasons that you mentioned, which is that we just want to give Erdogan a bone. And
that's what I believe.
Well, you believe that, but we've got no evidence. And, I mean, it's plausible, we don't know. But in absence of published decisions explaining why they did it, I think, based on what I've said, that it's actually illegal and he could challenge it. So 2 things will happen next, Pete. Number 1 is that he could appeal the process through Greece and ask for a list of reasons. Or 2, he could go directly to the European Court and say that this is against European law and seek justice there. Either way, I don't see him being returned to Turkey in a hurry. He's got a lot of supporters in Greece. It's a case that's achieved a lot of publicity. So there are avenues open to him. And I think that on the news recently, there was an announcement by the government that they're going to review the decision again.
Yeah,
and that he's not going to be extradited. And that was, you know, how they float, oh, we're going to raise the tax or we're going to do this. And then people get upset and they go, oh, we're just putting it out there. We're not going to do it. So I don't think that's going to be anywhere resolved anytime soon. Then there's that other great thing about diplomacy.
What's that?
Which is just because we say we're going to do something doesn't mean that we actually do it. So maybe was that one of those things where Greece just said something in order to temporarily placate people without having the intention to do it? It could be that.
Oh, yeah.
So before we judge the Greek government too harshly, and thus have the doors shut upon us forever, consider that maybe they're just playing the game. Yes. You know how they say, for example, they were telling us for 7 years they were going to open up a Greek tourist office in Melbourne,
that, man.
And it wasn't happening until questions were asked in Parliament? Maybe it's like that. Maybe they're just playing. Or how they say they're going to send more people, more personnel to the Philoxenia so you don't have waiting lists of 3 years long. Maybe it's just like that. Maybe it's just words. And when did words ever hurt anyone, Pete, is my question. Words.
Yeah, when did they ever hurt anyone, Dean?
As a great filmmaker once put in his film, words, what are words? Referring, of course, to the esteemed Peter Stefanidis' film, The Message, about the Pontic genocide.
Oh, gee.
So
there's
you got to be careful with these things because we feel sorry for people and we feel very strong about principles, but you never ever know what's going on.
No,
behind the scenes.
That also coincided with something else that Mitsotakis said.
Okay, let's talk about Mitsotakis. You don't like Mitsotakis, do you?
At the moment, he's not in my good books at all. So apart from
can I do the really, really cheesy joke and say that Greece and modern Greece has been scarred by the presence of 2 Japanese individuals? In terms of music, Sfakanaki. And in terms of politics, Mitsotakis.
Unbelievable.
I can't help myself, but I'm a dad now and I get to do dad jokes.
You get to do those jokes.
Yeah. I'm actually entitled to one more because I have 3 children.
At that summit, at that meeting you had with Erdogan, right at the end of his speech, he said that, and I'm paraphrasing here, right? I'm paraphrasing.
Paraphrase at will. You're still not getting an invite to the annual bash, the Philoxenia. You have to be on the list. It's not like come in and let's all celebrate together. Put me on the top of the blacklist.
I couldn't care less.
Okay, no, you can't use that word anymore. It's putting you on the what? No, you can't say whiteboard.
Persona non grata list. I love using the Latin.
Persona non grata. Persona non grata.
I love it when these diplomats throw Latin at you, and when you go to their office, thinking that that's going to impress you somehow. Like, anyway, it's a different story altogether.
Persona non grata. Yeah, cheese grater. Yesterday was Cheese Fair Sunday. Yeah.
He turned around and right there, he says, "Do not undermine the process or the peace that we're trying to achieve, and do so in the honor of former leaders like Eleftherios Venizelos and then Kemal Ataturk."
Yeah. What's wrong with that?
Honoring the memory of a genocidal maniac.
No, but he's not honoring the memory. I'm now taking your words, not what he said, because I can't remember the exact phrasing, but if your paraphrasis is correct, what he's saying is do not undermine the peace which was created by great leaders like Ataturk and Venizelos. Now, if that's what he said, Pete, I don't take issue. Why? Because you've got the 1922 Asia Minor catastrophe, which was the culmination of the war between Greece and Turkey, where 3,000 years of Greek presence in Asia Minor was extinguished, where Turkey was destroyed, Greece was destroyed, and people like Freya Stark talk about traveling through Turkey and seeing destroyed villages in the 50s, 20 years afterwards, 30 years afterwards. It took a big toll on Turkey as well as Greece. And it took a certain amount of greatness, however you define it, to get two leaders of two countries which absolutely hated each other, Kemal, who presided over not only the destruction of Smyrna and everything else, but also the removal of the Greeks and genocide, who had no love for Greece, and Venizelos, who is the leader of a country that's a victim of all this, although some people would argue, I don't, that he was the architect of the catastrophe. I don't agree with that, but it's a consideration. To get together and say, you know what, we hate each other's guts, but we need to create a peace here. And we need to find a way to live with each other. A modus vivendi, if you like. There's Latin. I'm being a Greek diplomat, modus vivendi.
They should give you a job.
Yeah, a way of living. And they did that through the Greco-Turkish treaty. And you see, that's the one where Venizelos wore that weird pointy hat, which we should bring it back. We should all wear the Venizelos pointy hat. And then what he did, you see those photos. In the old days when you weren't lazy, you would put up clips of photos and things to illustrate the point, but you don't do that anymore because we're older now. And
I'll do that this time.
No, don't do it. He's wearing the funny hat, and they're there, and they're wearing their tuxedos, and arm in arm with each other's wives. And
yes, I know the photo you're talking about. Yeah,
and they created the basis of a peace, which in fits and starts has lasted until today, almost 100 years later. That's not bad, because peace in our part of the world is always a very fragile thing. Not saying that they abided by this peace with feelings of warm-heartedness and grew to love each other and cooperate. No. That ever-present danger of that peace breaking is there. I was speaking to a friend the other day who grew up in the 90s, and with the EMEA incident, he was saying how people were at school, they were preparing everyone for war.
Yeah.
So there was that. In the 80s, there was the Hora incident with the Hora ship, and Papandreou was saying we're going to sink the Hora, and the Turkish people saying if you do that, there'll be war. There's constantly these threats, but they never happen yet, because there's a principle which was set out by these two people to make sure that we can live together. I don't know how long that's going to last for. I suspect it will not last forever. Yeah. When you get Turkish leaders boasting about how they threw us in the sea, and constantly saying every time you sneeze, we're going to go to war. It's a very fragile peace, but nonetheless, it's a peace that lasted. And that was an act of great leadership. When we talk about great leadership, we need to separate that from great people, great ethics, great morals. None of these people were particularly moral. And there's a lot about Ataturk we could talk about. There's a lot about Venizelos we could talk about. And you could say, well, which one is worse? And I mean, which way I go. I think that there were a lot of things that Ataturk did to his own people. The suppression of the Kurds, the suppression of opposition, the destruction of any type of ability for democracy to flower, which were very, very bad. Fining people for wearing fezzes instead of wearing hats. Unilateral decisions that change people's lives without asking them. All of that. But that's got nothing to do with the central thing, which is they cemented a peace, which remarkably has lasted. And not only that, this Venizelos goes off, and everyone says it, and goes and nominates Kemal Ataturk
the Nobel Peace Prize.
For the Peace Prize.
Yeah.
Why do you do this? Did he do it because he was so bereft of judgment? Did he do it because he loved Ataturk, he admired him? He did it because he would be willing, after Greece destroyed itself in trying to achieve its territorial and political and national ambitions, was desperate to ensure that there was a breathing space and peace in order for this country to survive.
Found the words. You want to play it for you?
Don't play it, read it.
No, I've got to play it.
Play it. Okay, we're playing the words.
Ότι η μοίρα μας όρισε να ζούμε στην ίδια γειτονιά.
Okay.
Δεν μπορούμε να αλλάξουμε τη γεωγραφία, μπορούμε όμως να την κάνουμε σύμμαχο.
Wow.
Επιλέγοντας τη σύγκληση, το διάλογο και την πίστη στο διεθνές δίκαιο. Ώστε με αίσθημα ευθύνης να χτίσουμε ένα αύριο ειρήνης, προόδου και ευημερίας για τις χώρες μας, να τιμήσουμε την παρακαταθήκη του ελευθερίου Βενιζέλου και του Κεμάλ Ατατούρκ.
Okay. I actually see nothing wrong with that. I don't know if the microphone was capable of picking that up because
I'll put it in.
Yeah, your equipment is anyway. Very good actually. He basically said we're here because of geography, but that doesn't have to be hold us back. It can be our ally. What we've got to do is we've got to do everything to preserve the legacy of Eleftherios Venizelos and Kemal Ataturk. Yeah? So he's not praising them as great leaders. He's saying we have to do everything to preserve their legacy, and he refers about the Greco-Turkish friendship. Two enemies who hate each other's guts, who tried to destroy each other, getting together and saying, on our side, saying, all right, whatever. On their side, saying, okay, we promise not to kill you anymore, and preserving a peace. I don't have a problem with that.
I've got a huge problem.
Every time...
Honouring the legacy of a man who butchered...
No, but he's not...
a number of...
He's not honouring
Greeks.
the broader legacy of Ataturk. He's honouring a specific act which he achieved with Venizelos.
Should not be honouring him at all on any level.
It's like, for example, I hear what you say. Could Adolf Hitler, been possible of an act of kindness, even though he's an irredeemably evil individual? He loved his dog Blondie. So if Adolf Hitler pats Blondie and gives him some puppy food, is that an irredeemably evil act that we can't praise? Or do we say we praise the fact that you love your dog, but you're an evil human being, get stuffed?
What do we do with him?
That's a question, isn't it? Because I don't think
anyone... We know what we do.
I don't think anyone would allow you to praise any legacy of Hitler.
Any legacy at all.
Yeah, and then the question is, well, he's our national leader. He's revered. This is coming from the Turkish point of view.
Yes.
He's the basis behind the Turkish Republic.
Yes.
We will not allow anyone to criticize him. And there are laws in Turkey.
Of course.
About criticizing Ataturk.
It's one thing for a Turkish citizen to not be forced to praise him. It's another thing for the leader of the Greek people to praise him.
So every time a Greek leader pays an official visit to Turkey,
yes,
they go to Ataturk's mausoleum.
All the time.
And they lay a wreath there.
Yes.
Yeah. So you object to that?
Absolutely.
Okay. And obviously, you don't hear Erdogan saying, your great leader, Venizelos, and let's...
No, definitely not.
Continue his great legacy.
No, because as far as great leader, all of our leaders are nothing but ants.
Your great leader, Alexis Tsipras, and all that he achieved.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen.
No.
But we go and praise Ataturk.
All the time.
And that bugs you?
A lot.
Okay. Do you think that Mitsotakis likes Ataturk?
No.
Do you think that all the other leaders that came before and will come after love Ataturk, respect Ataturk, feel the same way that Turkish people do about Ataturk?
No. No.
So why is he doing it?
Fealty to our true masters.
I don't agree.
You don't agree? Because that's exactly when they do that, that's exactly what they're showing the Turkish government all the damn time.
I don't think it's fealty. No. I think that's misconceived.
Politics.
They're not our masters. We belong to the European Union. Sorry, again, Greece. We're Australians. I keep on forgetting this. They belong to the European Union. They are not our masters. They are not their masters, sorry. What they are, though, is a large and powerful regional power.
Yes.
In our vicinity.
Yes.
Sorry, in their vicinity. I keep on forgetting I'm xena. And we need to placate them.
That's it.
And we need to keep them happy.
That's right.
Because we are afraid.
Yes.
It's coming from vulnerability.
Absolutely.
It's coming from insecurity.
Absolutely.
It's coming not from fealty, but from fear.
Yeah.
Now, is paying respect to a person who you don't particularly like advisable or a price too small when the possible alternative is war and destruction, you have to make a choice.
Yes.
Yes.
We have to make a choice. I agree. And we always
his
make the wrong
choice
one.
is we're going to swallow it.
Yes.
Because we are vulnerable.
Yeah.
And we're going to go there, and there will always be someone to say, είδες, πήγε εκεί πέρα και έγλειψε τους Τούρκους και είπε για τον Ataturk.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what? That's because you're forced. It's like when you're invited to your cousin's wedding and you hate your cousin's guts. And you say, why should I go? And you say, well, you have to go because then your mum and his mum are going to start fighting, and then the kumbaris are going to get involved, and look what you've just done. Was it necessary? You could have just gone, smiled, given your present, and buggered off.
Oh, there you have
Instead, you've created a familial war. It's the same thing, in my opinion. Part of the price of peace is taking a few for the team.
Yeah, getting onto your knees, basically.
And instead of getting upset, you should feel sorry for these people.
Feel sorry?
Yeah. Because they're put in
there was a time where
difficult positions where they have to make these choices. I used to have this discussion with people during the Tsipras time, and especially about the Macedonian issue.
Yeah.
And how people got really upset with the Prespes agreement.
Yeah.
And they were telling me that Tsipras is irredeemably condemned. Like, there's no going back after this.
Yeah.
Yeah. My question was this. Like, do you think that he really wanted to do that? That he was possessed by this burning desire to make these compromises? You know, ideologically believed it with all his heart? That's politics. That's what happens. No one wants to be the person that gives stuff away.
I really don't want to get into this topic. I think it's a good
but
topic.
I'm linking in terms of the compromises that you make.
I think that I think that he really wanted to there.
I don't know. I don't think anyone does.
I think he did. I think it was ideological, and apart from the powers that be pressuring him and the government to do so, including pressuring the government of the Skopjean state, no doubt, I think that part of him really wanted to do it anyway.
Okay. I don't have any evidence to back that up, so I can't make that judgment.
It's a supposition, but I believe.
But what I know is, again, Greece and the diplomatic and the political field is a chessboard where every second move is checkmate and every move is bad.
Another goal is predominantly to get these oil companies in there to drill for gas in that area. I know that's what Greece wants. And I think that to trying to get that as peacefully as possible, because any war would mean that it's going to be delaying that will impoverish the country even more. And this is an opportunity for them to be able to actually extract some gas, make some money, and make the country richer. I know that's what the end goal is.
No, I think the end goal is to survive. I don't think we're even there. We know that we can't drill for gas. We know that that's going to be a cause of war. We know that we can't do anything other than coast along because that's going to be a cause of war. That's the reality of our sunny state where people go and have their holidays in Mykonos and in Ios and wherever else, Santorini. Yeah,
I find the whole thing disgusting.
So you may not like the guy. You may have well-reasoned, I think you've got well-reasoned reasons why you feel that particular historical figure is repellent. And I may agree with you on this for many reasons, not only for what happened to us, but even within the formation of the Turkish state. I think that he created a stillborn, dysfunctional, undemocratic state by doing what he did. You can argue that that's what he had to do at the time. I don't think that's true. I think there were choices. Yeah, I think you could have had a vibrant, open, democratic, integrated Turkish state which preserves its territorial integrity without all of this. And I mean, you look at the development of the two countries. Yes, economically, demographically, Turkey is more powerful, which is a more open, more embracing society though. I mean, how do you rate success? We've all got our own criteria. By my criteria, I think the legacy, apart from security and economics and power, I think his legacy is yuck. Personal opinion. Do you admire a man, though, who took a state teetering on the brink of disruption, was going to be carved up by the world powers and created into a coherent whole? Yeah. Well, yeah, that's an act of leadership. Doesn't make it any better, in my opinion. But Mitsotakis is not referring to what I think you say he is.
Regardless, he shouldn't have said it. But can we...
Plus, Venizelos is related to him.
Oh,
They're
yeah,
part of
I
the
know.
family. They're a branch of the family.
Yeah.
It's like his Theo.
Not to end this session on talking
We're all going to
about...
die, mes enfants.
Talking about
and this
leaders.
is a problem. Hang on. This is a problem, Pete, because if Pauline Hanson, our One Nation nationalist leader here in Australia, decides that we all need to go back to where we came from, and then Turkey invades, well, we'll have to come back. So, yeah, anyway.
Do you mind if we move on to a positive leader?
Who's that? Do we have positive
Well, there was an
leaders?
article that you actually wrote recently about a Greek general.
Plastiras.
Plastiras, yes.
Plastiras.
Nikos. Why don't you tell us a little bit about him? What compelled you to write about him?
I was
recently?
forced to and told to because, see, what I'm doing is every year I give a lecture at the Greek community.
Yep.
It's part of the Greek history and culture seminars.
Sure.
And I'm kicking off. It's going to be next week.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So 5 months after this goes, before this goes
up.
to
Yeah,
air.
that's right.
And they asked me to talk about Nikolaos Plastiras, who was nicknamed O Mavros Kavalaris, the Black Rider.
Right. So what era, when was he born?
What did I say? He was very big and rose to fame with 1922.
Oh, right.
He was in the Ukraine because we fought a bit of a war up in the Ukraine.
Oh, right, we did, huh?
We can talk about that sometime. That's actually interesting. We went, you know how the White Russians tried to beat the Reds in the Russian Civil War after the revolution.
Yes.
And they were helped by the world powers.
Yes.
Well, Venizelos had this idea, Venizelos again, oh, that name, that if we sent some troops up north to Ukraine and helped them out, the world powers would be a little bit more receptive about what we do in Asia Minor.
Yeah.
So he sent a contingent up then. Plastiras was part of it.
Right.
That was a shambles. No one knew what they were doing up there.
Wow.
Not experienced, lack of coordination, didn't know the area. We were just basically there to make the Allies happy, kind of like how Howard sent troops to Iraq in the 2003 war just to make the Americans happy. Similar thing. But he was distinguished by his ethos, his looking after his soldiers.
Right.
Very good military man. Never got married. His life was the military. That's sus, but for those times it was okay. He did that. Asia Minor War, again, the same. But then he got involved in politics. So after the king was thrown out and with the catastrophe, he was one of the ones who staged the coup to get rid of the king.
Oh, right.
Controversially, he was one of the people who was implicated in the trial of the Six, the famous trial. So they got together the generals under the king who were leading the army in Asia Minor, and a few of the politicians at the time tried them for treason and executed them. It could have been 7 because Prince Andrew, the papu of the current man formerly known as Prince Andrew Windsor Mountbatten,
Yeah, okay.
he fought in Asia Minor.
Yes.
Yeah. And he was the one that said, you know what, there's such horrible people, these Asia Minor people. It's not worth fighting over them. You just let the Turks just go and slaughter them.
Gee.
He was like that. It was, in many respects, he had an arrogance and a short-temperedness about him that a lot of people I'm watching now with what's going on with his grandson attribute also to the grandson. But he escaped the country and was not, and thus escaped prosecution. But the 6 were killed. Now, Plastiras was always a general who was on the side of humanity and was always about mercy and tempering justice with humanity and understanding, and he was reticent about applying death sentences. But he did not do enough to prevent the execution of the 6. They were executed, and that was a decision that was overturned only, I think, a decade ago.
Really?
Yeah, because it was a political decision based on the heat of the moment, bad blood, anger, the fact that society had been polarized between Venizelos and the king. We spoke about that in a previous program. Look it up. It's an actually interesting episode. I find it interesting listening to myself. But he did that. He was then involved in another coup to bring Venizelos to power.
Right.
But by that stage, he was an elder statesman. And the whole idea of him was bring people together, never ran countries or got involved in politics in order to enrich himself, never got married, did have a family back in Thessalia, which he looked after. That was about it. He was like Cincinnatus, Cincinnatus, the Roman general. They bring him out of retirement and say, we've got this issue. He goes and fights off the invaders, and then instead of staying on to seek honours, goes home. So my job's done. I don't need anything. If only we had more people like him. Plastiras was like that. And then leaves he's in exile after the failed Venizelos coup of 35.
Right.
Doesn't come back because Metaxas comes to power in Greece in 36. So that when the Germans invade, he's in Marseille in exile.
Oh, right.
So he's not in Greece during the German occupation. But we'll return to that point because it did something a bit silly. When the war finishes and the Germans leave, he's brought back.
Right.
And he's prime minister. And he's doing everything he can.
And then he's prime minister?
Yeah.
Oh, I had no idea he became prime minister.
Yeah, the prime minister of Greece, mate. He does everything he can to prevent the civil war. He's all about don't alienate these communists, include them, work out a way to live with them. And he's one of the architects of the Varkiza agreement, which is where the Varkiza. That's where Elas, the democratic, well not the Elas, the resistance group,
right,
is going to lay down its arms and join the political process.
Right.
That was in 1944, thereabouts.
Right.
He was one of the people that was discussing that at the time, but that didn't happen, obviously. They felt that agreement wasn't adhered to. There were provocations, and then you have the civil war as a result of the breaking and destruction of that agreement. Ultimately, he's kicked out.
Yep.
2 reasons. 1, Americans didn't trust him. Too close to Venizelos, too liberal, too open, too conciliatory, and at that stage the attitudes are hardening.
Yeah.
It's either the communists or the royalists,
Yep.
and we don't want people who are in the middle. The centre, in times of crisis, always disintegrates, and he's in the centre.
Yeah.
Yeah? And they find a pretext, and the pretext is this. He wrote a letter during his time in Marseille during the war, saying, I think it was to the Vichy government in France, saying, look, you know what, I'm trying to do whatever I can to convince powers that be that we need to work with the Germans and we need to come to some type of arrangement to temper the harshness of what they're doing in Greece.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this letter magically surfaced.
Right.
And Archbishop Damaskinos, who was the regent because the king hadn't returned, said, look, you know, you're not coming back from this. This is a major boo-boo and you got to resign. So he did. Damaskinos is an interesting character. We should talk about him one time. Winston Churchill hated him, considered him like a medieval figure. There's but grew to respect him because of his ability to basically try and restructure modern Greece and set them back on a civilian footing. But there's the famous story of how Archbishop Damaskinos goes to Piraeus to visit Winston Churchill on his yacht. And at that time, the sailors are having a fancy dress party. When they see Damaskinos, they think it's one of them dressed up in a beard and fancy dress, and they just start laughing and making jokes about him and doing things like that, not realizing that he was the regent of Greece.
Gee.
Yeah, great story. That aside, he comes back in the 50s.
Okay.
Greece enters NATO because of him.
Him? Even though the Americans wanted him gone?
Oh, they voted him back in, the Greek people. He had his own party there and he got back in.
Right.
So in many ways, he was a far-seeing man who set the groundwork for modern Greece's position during the Cold War.
Wow.
And died in poverty, died in abject poverty.
Of course he did.
Didn't use his position to enrich himself.
No.
And the question I'm going to be asking in my lecture, because he made a few boo-boos along the way, getting involved in military coups, to what extent can the military or a particular military commander consider himself the protector of a democratic state?
That's a good question.
Because you see that parallel with Turkey, and we've been speaking about Turkey a lot. You know, in Turkey there have been a lot of military coups.
They have, yes.
And the whole pretext behind the military coup is, well, we're coming in to safeguard the constitution.
Correct, yes.
Things are going haywire.
Yes.
And that's obviously a very arbitrary act.
Yes.
And it's got to do with perspective. You know, the colonels in 1967 said that they were doing the same thing.
Absolutely.
And that they were intending to hand over for democracy, which they were, going to create some type of democratic system, which they controlled.
Yeah.
Yeah. So these are the question I'm asking. Yeah, great man. Yes, very humane, very talented, very skilled.
It's a good question.
Very self-effacing and not self-aggrandizing, definitely not self-enriching. But when you judge these acts like a coup against the state is treason. Criminal or hero?
It's a good question.
And that's my point. I was trying to explain to you before. Can a criminal create good acts? And can you admire the good acts of a bad person? Yeah, these are the questions here. So that's what I'm going to be talking about.
Interesting.
Yeah, in a lot more boring, excruciatingly more boring detail than
not like this format
than this horrible discussion that we've just had here, which has been puerile and inane, as always, Mes Enfants.
That's what we do.
That's what we do.
And with that, we're finished.
It is the end.
It is the end, Dean.
As you were, Mes Enfants. Don't forget to register your howls of protest in the comments below.
Please
Please do not share with your friends. And until next time, whenever that is, the pleasure, as always, has been moderate. Yes, sir.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
See ya.